The Pocket Stoic, 30-minute daily wisdom from Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus for discipline, calm, and resilience. Ancient Stoic philosophy for busy men, leaders, and modern life by Aurelian Hart. Introduction. The heat in Rome was so thick it felt like you could grab it with your hands. It was the summer of 64 AD, and a small spark near the big racetrack, the Circus Maximus, had just turned into a monster. Within minutes, the wooden shops were feeding a wall of fire that climbed higher than the stone temples. People were just running. They were screaming, pushing, and tripping over their own children in the dark, smoky streets. The air smelled like burning cedar and hot oil. It was the kind of moment where your brain stops thinking and your body just wants to scream. In the middle of this nightmare, the city's leaders were nowhere to be found. The emperor, Nero, was miles away at his beach house. The police and the fire crews were overwhelmed. The social fabric of the greatest city on earth was ripping apart in real time. If you were a citizen of Rome that night, you felt like the world was ending. You were losing your home, your money, and your sense of safety all at once. But while thousands of people were succumbing to total hysteria, a small group of men stood still. These were the Stoics. One of them, a leader named Paetus, didn't run in circles. He didn't join the mobs looking for someone to blame. Instead, he and those like him looked at the fire and asked a very simple, very strange question. What part of this is up to me? They couldn't stop the wind. They couldn't put out a fire that covered half the city with just a bucket of water. But they could control their own breathing. They could control how they spoke to the person shivering next to them. They could choose to be the person who brought order to the chaos, instead of adding more chaos to the pile. Stoicism was forged in this kind of heat. It wasn't a hobby for people with too much free time. It was a survival kit for when the world was literally burning down. The modern fire. You might not be standing in a burning city today, but you probably know exactly how those Romans felt. Your fire is much quieter, but it's just as hot. It's the sound of a phone vibrating at 6 o'clock a.m. with a work email that ruins your breakfast. It's the ping of a Slack notification that pulls you away from your kid's soccer game. It's the tight feeling in your chest when you look at your calendar and realize you are booked in back-to-back meetings until sunset. We live in a world that wants to steal your peace. Every app on your phone was built by a team of experts designed to make you feel a little bit anxious so you'll keep clicking. Every breaking news alert is designed to make you feel like the world is falling apart. We are successful, we are busy, and we are connected. But many of us feel hollow. We feel like reactive firefighters. We spend all day spraying water on small problems. Emails, errands, arguments. You know the feeling. It's that sense of hurry sickness, where you feel like you're behind schedule the second you wake up. You're physically in the room with your family, but your mind is 3 days away, worrying about a project that might fail. You are a pillar of your company or your home, but inside, you feel like you're one bad news cycle away from a total breakdown. You tell yourself, if I just work harder, I'll finally get ahead of it. But the fire just keeps growing. This book is about walking out of that fire. It is about moving from being a man who reacts to everything to a man who chooses his response. It is about becoming what we call the Stoic commander. A Stoic commander isn't someone who doesn't have feelings. He isn't a robot. He is a man who has built a mental filter so strong that the world's nonsense can't get inside. When an angry boss sends a mean email, the commander doesn't get a spike in heart rate. He sees the email for what it is, a collection of pixels on a screen. When a major plan falls apart, he doesn't waste an hour complaining. He immediately asks, how can I use this to get better? By the time you finish this book, you will have a new operating system for your life. You will learn how to stay calm when everyone else is losing their heads, reclaim at least 2 hours of your day from junk time and distractions, build discipline that doesn't feel like a chore, but like a superpower. Lead your family and your team with a sense of presence that makes people feel safe. Turn your biggest setbacks into the very things that make you successful. This isn't a theory. This is a practice. It only takes 30 minutes a day to start seeing the change. We are going to use the wisdom of 3 men who lived through things much worse than a bad day at the office. We will learn from an emperor who ran the known world, a slave who was beaten until his legs snapped, and a wealthy advisor who had to manage a literal psychopath. They found a way to be free, and you can too. Why this works? You might think that philosophy is for dusty old books in college classrooms. But Stoicism was never meant to stay in a library. It was meant for the battlefield, the marketplace, and the halls of power. It works because it is based on the way the human brain actually functions. It doesn't ask you to wish for a better world. It gives you the tools to handle the world you actually live in. The evidence for this approach is found in the lives of the people who used it. It's the secret weapon of Navy SEALs, world-class athletes, and the most successful CEOs on the planet. They use it because it is the only thing that works when the pressure is at its highest. When you can't control the outcome, you have to control the only thing you own: your mind. Meet David. To see how this works in the real world, we need to look at someone who is right where you are. David Miller is 42 years old. He lives in Chicago and works as the VP of logistics for a global shipping firm. On paper, David is winning. He has a beautiful wife, Sarah, and 2 energetic sons, Max and Leo. He has a glass-walled office that looks out over the Chicago River. He wears nice suits and flies business class. But David is drowning on dry land. Every morning, David wakes up at 5 a.m., but he doesn't get out of bed. He spends 30 minutes scrolling through news and emails, feeling his blood pressure rise before his feet even hit the floor. By the time he's on the commuter train, he's already had 3 micro-arguments in his head with people who haven't even spoken to him yet. At work, David is a firefighter. A ship is stuck in a canal, David has to fix it. A client is angry, David has to take the call. His phone vibrates so much that he sometimes feels it phantom vibrating in his pocket when it's not even there. He feels like if he stops grinding for even 1 minute, the whole machine will stop and his life will collapse. The worst part is when he goes home. He walks through the door and his boys run to him, but his mind is still in the office. He's checking his Slack notifications under the dinner table. He's present, but he isn't there. Sarah sees it. She's told him he looks like he's haunted. He's exhausted, irritable, and he feels like he's drifting through his own life. David's problem isn't his job. His problem isn't the shipping industry. His problem is that he has no inner citadel. He has no fortress inside his mind to protect him from the world. He is a man who is completely at the mercy of external events. If the day is good, he's okay. If the day is bad, he's a wreck. Throughout this book, we are going to follow David as he tries to apply Stoic wisdom to his high-stakes life. We will see him stumble. We will see him try these exercises. And we will see if a modern, stressed-out executive can actually find the same peace that a Roman emperor found 2,000 years ago. The journey ahead. We aren't going to spend weeks studying history. We are going to get straight to work. The chapters ahead are designed to be read quickly and applied immediately. In the first part of our journey, we will learn the dichotomy of control. This is the foundational tool that helps you stop wasting energy on things you can't change. We will look at Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man on earth, writing in a cold tent in the middle of a war, reminding himself how to be a good person. Next, we will tackle self-sabotage. We'll look at the life of Epictetus, who was born a slave. He will show us how to be free even when our circumstances are working against us. We'll see how David uses this to handle a boardroom betrayal without losing his cool. Then, we will build your morning and evening rituals. We will look at how the Stoics pre-flighted their days to avoid being surprised by difficult people or bad news. You'll learn how to audit your own character every night, so you can wake up stronger the next morning. We will also explore the view from above. This is a mental exercise that helps you zoom out and see your problems for what they really are, tiny specks in a vast universe. We'll watch David use this while flying over the city, realizing that his massive crisis isn't as big as it feels. Finally, we will look at the ultimate tests: integrity, resilience, and mortality. We will see how to lead others when everything is falling apart. just like Marcus Aurelius did during a plague that killed millions. We will learn how to face the things we fear most, so they no longer have power over us. This book is your manual for a different kind of life. It's a life where you are the one in charge of your attention. It's a life where you can work hard, lead, but you don't have to be afraid of it. You just need to know how to stand your ground. In 1997, Steve Jobs returned to a company in chaos. He didn't try to do everything. He focused on a few core things and said no to everything else. That is what we are going to do with your mind. We are going to cut away the noise and focus on the character. The 30-minute daily practice starts now. The world is waiting for the Stoic commander to show up. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Dichotomy of Control. Sorting what matters. The air inside the leather tent was thick with the smell of damp earth and wood smoke. It was a gray morning in the year 170 AD on the frozen banks of the Danube River. Outside, thousands of Roman soldiers were waking up in the mud. They were far from the sun-drenched marble of Rome. They were in a place called Carnuntum, a cold, wet edge of the world where the wind felt like a knife. At the center of this camp sat a man who owned everything. His name was Marcus Aurelius. As the Emperor of Rome, he was the most powerful person on the planet. If he wanted a city built, it was built. If he wanted an army to move, it moved. His face was stamped on every gold coin from Egypt to Britain. He had thousands of servants who would die for him. But as Marcus sat at his small wooden desk, his hands were shaking from the cold. He was old, his body was tired, and he was surrounded by things he could not change. His morning started the way it always did. A messenger arrived with bad news. The war against the German tribes was dragging on. More of his friends had died in the mud. Even worse, a sickness called the Antonine Plague was sweeping through his camps. Soldiers were coughing and turning gray. No amount of imperial gold could stop the germs. No decree from the emperor could make the sun come out or the winter end. Marcus had every reason to be angry. He could have screamed at his generals. He could have thrown his furniture. He could have sat in the dark and felt sorry for himself. Instead, he reached for a roll of parchment and a pen. He began to write to himself. He wasn't writing a law or a speech for the people. He was writing a private diary to keep his own mind from breaking. He wrote about a simple idea that would change the world. He realized that although he ruled the Roman Empire, he did not rule the world. He only ruled his own thoughts. He looked at the chaos outside his tent, the mud, the war, the sickness, and he realized he had been trying to carry the weight of things that didn't belong to him. In those quiet moments in the cold, Marcus built a wall in his mind. He called it his inner citadel. It was a fortress where the noise of the world could not reach. He decided that from that moment on, he would stop fighting the things he couldn't change and focus entirely on the one thing he could: his own choices. The big lie we all believe. Most of us live our lives under a spell. We believe a very dangerous myth. The myth says if I just work hard enough and worry long enough, I can control what happens next. Think about your own life. You check the weather app 5 times a day because you want the weekend to be sunny. You check your bank account every hour when things are tight. You replay a conversation in your head over and over, hoping you can somehow change what your boss thinks of you. We act like we are the directors of a giant movie. We want the actors to say their lines perfectly. We want the lighting to be just right. We want the ending to be happy. But life isn't a movie set. It's more like a wild ocean. You can't control the waves. You can't control the wind. You can't even control the other boats. The only thing you control is how you steer your own ship. People think that the more power you have, the more control you get. That is the myth Marcus Aurelius had to bust for himself. He was the emperor, and yet he couldn't make his body stop aging. He couldn't make the plague go away. He couldn't make his enemies surrender just by wishing it. When we try to control things outside of ourselves, we become slaves. If you need your boss to be happy to feel good, your boss owns your happiness. If you need the traffic to be light to stay calm, the highway owns your peace of mind. You are giving your power away to people and things that don't even know you exist. Stoicism teaches us that there are 2 buckets in life: The first bucket is filled with things within our power. This is a very small bucket. It only holds your own thoughts, your own actions, and your own character. The second bucket is filled with things not within our power. This bucket is huge. It holds the weather, the economy, what other people think, the past, and the final results of your work. The secret to a calm life is to stop putting your energy into the big bucket. When you try to reach into that big bucket, you get pulled into the chaos. You feel anxious because you are trying to do the impossible. You are trying to be God. The view from the metro train. 2,000 years after Marcus wrote in his tent, a man named David Miller sat on a train in Chicago. David was 42 years old, and he felt like his life was a house of cards. It was a Tuesday morning. The sky over the city was the color of a wet sidewalk. David was the VP of logistics for a global shipping company. His job was literally to control things. He spent his days tracking ships in the middle of the ocean and trucks on the highway. If a shipment was late, David's phone would buzz. That morning, the phone wouldn't stop. A major shipping lane was blocked. Millions of dollars were at risk. David's heart was drumming against his ribs. He felt a familiar tightness in his chest, a feeling he called the buzz. It was the feeling of being hunted. Suddenly, the train lurched to a stop. David looked out the window. They were stuck between stations. A voice came over the speaker. "We have a signal problem. We will be moving shortly." David checked his watch. He had a board meeting in 30 minutes. He felt a wave of hot anger wash over him. He started tapping his foot. He checked his watch again. He pulled out his phone and started typing a frantic email. He looked at the other passengers. Why were they so calm? Didn't they know the world was falling apart? He felt like he wanted to get out and push the train himself. He was doing exactly what Marcus Aurelius warned against. It was trying to reach into the big bucket. He was trying to control the train, the signals, and the board members waiting for him. But then, he remembered a line he had read the night before. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. David took a deep breath. He looked at his phone. He realized that checking his email for the 50th time wouldn't make the train move. Getting angry wouldn't fix the signal. He was suffering because he was fighting reality. He tried a small experiment. He called it the control filter. Can I move this train? No. Can I change the time of the meeting from here? No. Can I control my own breath right now? Yes. Can I choose to be kind to the person sitting next to me? Yes. David put his phone in his pocket. He leaned back in the hard plastic seat. For the first time in years, he just looked out the window. The tightness in his chest didn't go away instantly, but it stopped getting worse. He realized that the crisis was happening out there, but the panic was happening inside him. He could choose to let the panic go, even if the crisis stayed. The choice of the emperor. Back in the muddy camp at Carnuntum, Marcus Aurelius faced a much bigger version of David's problem. One day, his doctors told him the plague had reached his own tent. Marcus was likely dying. On top of that, he received word that one of his most trusted generals was trying to steal the throne. His friends were crying. They couldn't believe how unfair it was. Marcus had been a good man. He had worked hard. Why was this happening to him? Marcus didn't join them in their crying. He looked at them and asked a question that every Stoic should keep in their pocket. Why are you weeping for me, instead of thinking about the sickness and the death that belongs to everyone? He wasn't being cold. He was being realistic. He knew that death and betrayal were in the big bucket. They were part of the nature of things. To be upset that people betray you is like being upset that a fire is hot or that a stone falls down instead of up. Marcus spent his final days focusing on his duty. He made sure the army was safe. He made sure the next emperor was ready. He didn't waste a single second complaining about the unfairness of his fate. He knew that his character was the only thing that would last. When we focus on what we can control, we become powerful. When we focus on what we can't, we become victims. Think about a professional athlete. If a basketball player is thinking about the scoreboard or the fans screaming at him or the bad call the ref just made, he will probably miss his next shot. Those things are in the big bucket. But if he focuses only on his form, his breath, and his movement, he has a much better chance of winning. The paradox is that the less you worry about the result, the better your results usually are. Building your internal fortress. So, how do we actually do this? How do we build this inner citadel? It starts with the language we use. Most of us use victim language without realizing it. He made me so mad. This weather is ruining my day. I have to go to this meeting. A Stoic changes the script. I chose to get angry at his words. It is raining, and I am choosing to be unhappy about it. I am choosing to go to this meeting because I value my job. When you change your language, you reclaim your power. You stop being a ball pushed around by the world and start being the person doing the pushing. Marcus Aurelius used to tell himself every morning, "Today I shall meet with people who are nosy, ungrateful, arrogant, and mean. They are like this because they don't know the difference between good and evil. But none of them can hurt me because they cannot force me to do something wrong." He was pre-sorting his day. He knew he couldn't control the arrogant person. That person was going to show up whether Marcus liked it or not. By accepting that ahead of time, he took away their power to surprise him or ruin his mood. He built a wall around his peace of mind. David Miller started doing this on his commute. Every time the train slowed down or a loud passenger started talking on their phone, he would say to himself, "Not in my bucket." The delay? Not in my bucket. The rude passenger? Not in my bucket. My reaction to the noise? In my bucket. Within a few weeks, David's coworkers started to notice a change. He wasn't the reactive firefighter anymore. When a shipping container got lost in the Atlantic, David didn't start yelling. He sat down, pulled out a notepad, and started looking for a solution. He was still working hard, maybe harder than before, but he wasn't leaking energy through anxiety. He was becoming a stoic commander, sorting the noise from the signal. The hardest part of this practice is when the stakes are high. It's easy to be stoic when you lose your car keys. It's much harder when you lose your job, or your health, or someone you love. But this is exactly when the dichotomy of control matters most. In a crisis, our brains naturally go into panic mode. We start imagining 1,000 bad futures. We ask, "What if?" over and over. This is like trying to grab smoke with your bare hands. It feels like you're doing something, but you're just getting tired. The Stoic approach to a crisis is to be like a surgeon. When a surgeon is in the operating room and things go wrong, they don't scream at the sky. They don't complain that the patient's heart is weak. They focus on the next stitch. They focus on the monitor. They focus on the one thing they can do right now to help. They sort the signal, what can be done, from the noise, the fear, and the what-ifs. In your daily life, the noise is everywhere. It's in the news alerts on your phone. It's in the gossip at the office. It's in the social media posts that make you feel like you aren't successful enough. All of that is noise. None of it is in your bucket. The signal is your effort. The signal is your honesty. The signal is how you treat the person standing in front of you. Your first step today, Stoicism, is not a philosophy you just read about. It is a philosophy you do. It is a set of tools you use when life gets messy. Marcus Aurelius didn't write his diary to be famous. He wrote it to survive. He was a man under immense pressure, just like you. He felt the same fear, the same anger, and the same exhaustion. The only difference is that he decided to stop fighting the wind. Today, you will face something that irritates you. Maybe it's a red light when you're late. Maybe it's a rude comment on the internet. Maybe it's a dishwasher that leaks. When that moment happens, your old habit will be a reach into the big bucket. You will want to get angry at the light, the person, or the machine. Instead, I want you to try one simple thing: the 2-bucket audit. Pick one thing that is currently stressing you out. It could be a project at work, a conflict with a friend, or a bill you have to pay. Now grab a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle. On the left side, write down every part of that problem you cannot change. The other person's attitude, the deadline that already passed, the amount of money you owe. On the right side, write down every part of that problem you can change right now. How much time you spend working on it today. The words you use in your next email. Your decision to stop complaining about it. Once you have your list, look at the left side. Take a deep breath and say out loud, "This is not up to me." Then look at the right side. This is your mission. This is where your power lives. Ignore everything else and put all your heart into the items on the right. You might find that the problem doesn't go away. The bill might still be there. The project might still be hard. You will move from being a reactive firefighter to a stoic commander. You are starting to build your inner citadel. It's a fortress made of your own choices, and once it's strong enough, nothing in this world can take it away from you. Marcus Aurelius ended his life in that cold tent, but he died with a quiet mind. David Miller is still riding the metro train, but he's not checking his watch every 30 seconds anymore. They both learned the same secret. You don't need to control the world to be happy. You only need to control yourself. Chapter 2. Why do we sabotage our own success? The sound of the bone snapping was loud enough to echo off the stone walls of the Roman villa. It was a sharp, dry crack, like a dead branch breaking under a heavy boot. Most men, in that moment, would have filled the room with a scream that could be heard 3 blocks away. Most men would have begged for mercy, cursed their gods, or wept in agony. But the man with the broken leg did not scream. He did not even flinch. He looked up at the man who had just crippled him, a man who owned him as property, and spoke in a voice as calm as a summer morning. "Did I not tell you it would break?" he asked. When the bone gave way, he simply nodded, as if a weather forecast he'd made had finally come true. "You see, now it is broken, just as I said." The man with the broken leg was Epictetus. He was a slave in the household of a powerful man named Epaphroditus, who served as the secretary to the Emperor Nero. Epaphroditus was wealthy, influential, and physically whole, yet he was a man ruled by his temper and his fears. Epictetus was a slave with a shattered limb, yet he was the only person in that room who was truly free. He didn't know it yet, but that moment of extreme pain was the beginning of a philosophy that would change the world. It was the birth of a secret that most of us spend our entire lives trying to figure out. Why do we constantly get in our own way? Why do we have everything we need to be happy, yet we spend our days feeling stressed, angry, and out of control? The man who had no name. To understand why we sabotage our own success, we have to look at where Epictetus started. He wasn't born into a world of books and quiet study. He was born into the dirt. Even his name tells the story. Epictetus isn't really a name at all. It is a Greek word that means acquired or bought. To his masters, he was just a piece of equipment, like a shovel or a horse. He grew up in Rome during a time of madness. The Emperor Nero was on the throne, and the city was a place where one wrong word could cost you your life. Fear was the air everyone breathed. People with massive fortunes lived in constant terror that Nero would get jealous and seize their land. Generals lived in fear of losing a battle. Even Epaphroditus, the man who owned Epictetus, was a slave to his own anxiety about staying in the emperor's good graces. Epictetus watched all of this. From his position in the corners of the room, he saw the most powerful men in the world acting like children. He saw them throw tantrums when they didn't get their way. He saw them lose their minds over a bit of gossip or a lost sum of money. He realized something profound. External freedom doesn't matter if your mind is in chains. We often think that if we just had more money, a better job, or a bigger house, we would finally be happy. We think that if people treated us with more respect, our stress would vanish. But Epictetus saw people who had all those things and were still miserable. They were sabotaging themselves. They were letting things they couldn't control, like the emperor's mood or the opinions of the public, dictate whether they had a good day or a bad day. By the time his master twisted his leg in a fit of rage, Epictetus had already built a fortress inside his mind. He had decided that his happiness belonged to him and him alone. His master could break his leg, but his master could not make him angry. His master could own his body, but his master could not touch his moral will, or what he called prohairesis. Fast forward 2,000 years to a glass-walled office overlooking the Chicago River. David Miller is sitting in a leather chair that costs more than Epictetus's life was probably worth in Rome. On paper, David is a stoic commander in training. He has the books. He has the morning routine. But today, The fortress is under attack. David is sitting in a high-stakes board meeting. He has spent 3 months working on a new